I am having such a bad hair day. Like, please just excuse all of the frizz, all of the everything you see. We're just gonna keep it moving, pretend like it's like luscious and curled and looking fantastic, because you know what, I just can't anymore. Anyway, let's do this. Hi guys, welcome back to the Pretty Bookish channel, where we talk all things books all the time. My name is Noble Kanya, your resident book nerd. As you can see, we're back in my normal location. We're back at home, no more on-site videos, although I think I still have a vlog to upload that's like on-site, but for right now, we're back with the pink door and the green walls and all this like fun stuff in my room. So today I am going to be talking to you guys, or basically running you guys through my April wrap-up, all the books that I read in April. If you're new here, welcome. I do this every month. If you're an OG, you know what this is about, so just like buckle up, because you know this is going to be a long ride. I managed to actually finish 20 books this month. I think only 2 of them or 3 of them were ebooks that I probably don't have physical copies of right now, but I did work this month. Like, I managed to finish so many books that have been sitting on my shelf. I managed to finish A Court of Silver Flames, which, like, if you watch my vlog, you know I had a lot of feelings about. Like, I managed to finish quite a few books that have been like on my conscience, because I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe you still haven't read that. So yeah, I read quite a few books that I'm really excited about this month. I got a couple of 5-star in. I DNF'd one, which like really upset me. But across the board, it was like a solid 3.5, 4. I had a good reading month. I had a couple of duds, but not as many as I have had in other months. So like, I'm really happy about that. It actually came out really, really well. So yeah, let me just like jump straight into it, because there are like 20 books to talk about, and I don't want this video to be like 45 minutes long. So let's start. April 2021 book wrap up. Let's do it. Oh, before we get started, some light admin. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Instagram on @PrettyXBookish. Like, comment, follow, share, all that fun stuff. You guys know the drill by now. Like, you know what it is. Tell your mama, your grandmother. Stop the cashier at Checkers and be like, do you follow PrettyXBookish? Like, if you don't, what are you even doing with your life? Do you know what I mean? That's the kind of energy I want from you guys. Okay, so let's get started. April wrap up. Lego. Okay, so April 2021. Sorry, my hair looks really crazy and it's distracting me. But anyway, we move. April 2021, wrap up the books that I read. So the first book that I read, I think is probably one of the first books that I read this month, was Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. Let's put it to the side. Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse, fantasy book. It's based on a pre-Columbian society, so like pre-colonization in the US society. It's like rooted in a couple of like indigenous American and I think it's indigenous American mythologies. I really enjoyed this book. I think I haven't done a review on Instagram yet, because I'm still trying to shoot this, because this cover, you guys know I'm working on something really great for this cover, but so I haven't put the review up on Instagram yet. But I would give it like a solid 4 stars. I thought this was such a great book one of a fantasy series. It was working on a different mythologies, different world building system, different histories that I haven't read a single book by a fantasy book by an indigenous writer. So like, I was just like, yes. So I found it interesting from that perspective. I love the multiple narrative perspectives, right? So, you know, like, I know people hate it when you like compare stuff to like Game of Thrones or whatever, but I'm going to give you Game of Thrones as a comparison point for this simple reason. You know how like on Game of Thrones, especially this show, I don't know about the books, there are multiple characters doing multiple things in different locations, and you can see they're about to converge on one thing, right? So you know, like Daenerys and them are there, the Starks are there, then like Cersei and them are there. Same thing with this book. The main characters, I think it's like 3 main characters, yeah. The 3 main kind of character plot points are all on the same, like one is in the specific location in the sun goddess place, and then the other one is like a journey and stuff like that. So I'm going to tell you their names, because actually this is so stupid. Like Shiala and Serapio, and then also the Sun Priest. So they all have these things happening, and you can see Rebecca Roanhorse weaving the story together. You can see where they're going to converge, and then like but they all have like their unique character points, and they all have their unique kind of like histories or backstories. So yeah, I love the characters, especially Serapio. I feel like he's going to be such a great character, or they are going to be such a great character going forward. I also love Shala. So I want to see what's going to happen with those two characters. So the ending of this book also sets it up perfectly for a book 2. So Black Sun, I definitely think is worth quite a bit of the hype that it's getting. It's a really, really, really good book. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed that one. The other book that I read is another one that's been on my shelf for ages, or that's like been on my mind at least for ages, because I think I only got it this year, and it is Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. So I enjoyed Cemetery Boys quite a bit. I thought it was a great, so it's a queer, it's not fantasy, it's a queer YA novel with a trans character named Yadril. And so this book is rooted in kind of South, I want to say Latinx histories, Latinx culture, that's the word I'm looking for, Latinx cultures, and especially around spirituality and mythology and the relationship between the living and the dead. So Miguel, who's the mayor, no, his name is Julian. Julian is a ghost basically, and then Yadril, who is trying to be a brujo. So he's trying to ascend to become a practitioner of the kind of his family's legacy is kind of they commune with the dead and they help spirits move over, and then every year they have a festival where they get to commune with the dead, etc. So he's trying to navigate the space of being trans and trying to step into his full identity and contending with his community and their cultures and what people believe is and isn't appropriate in that way. And then he kind of summons a spirit by mistake, and then it's Julian, and then there's that kind of romance. And I like the banter, I like the characters, I like the best friendship that Yadril has with his best friend. I don't know what, I can't remember what her name is, but I really like this book. I especially love how they explore the relationship between Yadril and his father, because I think the conversation around queer children, especially children of color with their parents, I love books that really add depth and nuance to the conversation. To be like, a lot of parents, especially like parents of color, are always painted as being just like inherently homophobic, and I like that in this book what happens is that there's a lot of hurt because the father makes a lot of mistakes, he misgenders him, and he's very not believing in this idea of like, you can see that he loves his child and he would never like disown his kid, but he's also struggling a lot with accepting Yadril for who he is. Do you know what I mean? So I like that this book kind of explores that conversation, because I think a lot of the time people just kind of have this, oh, okay, parents of color are just homophobic, it is what it is, but actually it's a lot more nuanced. So I definitely enjoyed this. I think it's a great queer YA novel, so look out for that. June is Pride Month, so you know that would be the perfect time. Okay, so the other book that I read is finally finished. It's a non-fiction called Culture Warlords by Talia Levin. My journey into the dark web of white supremacy. So basically, she's exploring the conversation around white supremacy, basically, and the overwhelming concept or overarching theme in this book is discussing how white supremacy is rooted in anti-Semitism, right? So I thought it was interesting from that perspective because I don't really know a lot, and I even asked on Instagram. I had always assumed that Jewish people, and I guess it's a false assumption because there are black and people of color who are Jewish, but I always assumed that like that Jewish people were considered white, right? So I didn't know that there's actually a different dynamic when it comes to anti-Semitism and white supremacy, where a lot of white supremacists believe that Jewish people are not actually white and that it's like a taint on white blood, so it's not the same thing. So I found that interesting. I will say the book is a bit repetitive. I think it's like longer than it needs to be. Like this also could have been low-key a journal article or an email. I thought it got repetitive in some parts, and it's also like technically quite dense, if that makes sense. And it also it repeats a lot of the same ideas. It's just different chapters and coming at a different angle, but more or less the overarching theme, I gleaned it from like chapter 3. I got the gist of it. So the rest of it, I was just like, I'm not really sure why I need to keep reading this. But all in all, what it was exploring, I found interesting. So what I would say, definitely get this out of the library. I would definitely say like get it out of the library or get the ebook, and just like, even if you could get the audiobook, I think that would be better. Like I wouldn't necessarily buy that book, but I got gifted it. So yeah, that was really good. The other book that I finished, if you guys will watch my Durban vlog, you'd know, is Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. Okay guys, I don't understand why people don't like Mansfield Park. So many people were like, when I was talking about doing my Jane Austen challenge, people were just like, okay, yeah, just don't worry, like Mansfield Park and Northanger Abbey are not her best ones or whatever. First of all, I loved Mansfield Park. I thought it was just so, it was so shady. There was so much tea, there was so much drama, there was so much ridiculousness. Fanny is I was like riding for Fanny. Like at some point, if you guys, obviously, if you've watched my Cape Town vlog, you know, I was just like at some point, Fanny, collect the bag. And then there was a switch up at the end. I was like, oh shit. And it's just the whole thing. And the thing I love about these kinds of books, guys, this whole thing of people falling in love with their cousins, I just like conceptually can't get around it because I'm thinking to myself, but that's your cousin. I keep forgetting that like back in the day, like that wasn't really a thing. So yeah, anyway, I really liked Mansfield Park. I think right now it's probably my top 3 Jane Austen books because I said the Sense and Sensibility, between Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility, it's a battle for the top spot, but I think it's probably Sense and Sensibility, then Pride and Prejudice, and then I'd actually give it to Mansfield Park because I didn't really like I liked Persuasion, but it's not my favorite. I think Mansfield Park is really good, so I'm so glad I picked up this copy at the exclusive book sale for like $30. So yeah, I read Mansfield Park. I only have Emma left, so that was great as well. Another book that I absolutely loved this month was Troy by Stephen Fry. The Greek mythology nerd in me was just like, hallelujah. Like, it was so freaking good. Can I just say, audiobook. That's all I had. Audiobook, guys. Like, so Stephen Fry narrates this audiobook. He is so witty, so funny. He adds such a different element to the book when you read, because I was reading it, but I was mostly listening to it because I got an advanced listener's copy of the audiobook from Libro, and so I was listening to it while I was following along in the book. He adds such levity to the book, but also he gives it such gravitas, and it tells a story and he makes it feel real. Like, Stephen Fry makes you feel like this actually happened and these people actually existed. And I love that, like, there's sections of the book where, like, obviously Greek mythology, there's a lot of lineage. He married he's the child of who, and this god and that, whatever. There are dense sections like that. And he'll literally stop halfway through and say, I hope you guys are following along because this is a lot, but onward we move. And I just would chuckle, be like, Stephen, bruh, I really was getting confused. Thank you for reminding me that, like, this stuff is really confusing. So yes, Troy, I really enjoyed this. If you like Greek mythology, definitely get this. Everyone keeps asking me if I have Mythos and Heroes. I do not yet, but I definitely am going to get them. This one just got gifted to me, and I just listened to it, loved it. So definitely Mythos and Heroes is next on my purchase list. So yeah, Troy by Stephen Fry, 5 out of 5. Absolutely loved that one. Fantastic. Another book that I actually loved, wow guys, I had like such a good reading month, was Hitting a Straight Lick with a Crooked Stick by Zora Neale Hurston. First of all, it's a collection of short stories. Guys, Zora is... You know what? Whenever you read Zora Neale Hurston, you realize why there's an entire canon of writing that's like called the Zora canon. Like, why she's considered one of the foundational African-American and just like Black writers. Her storytelling ability is phenomenal. Like, these short stories are so good. You feel like you're there. You have like, and the thing is with Zora is that having the ability to write a short story and make me fall in love and make me want to root for characters, like right from the beginning, is so hard, because I feel like short stories, it's very difficult to do that because there's just not a lot of space. So my favorite ones from this collection, in case you want to get it or want to read it, is John Redding Goes to Sea, The Conversion of Sam, I really loved. What was the other one? Under the Bridge, I really, really liked. Magnolia Flower, and The Country and the Woman. So The Country and the Woman one, I love that one especially, but like, this collection is really good. I definitely think if you're looking for a short story collection. Also, this is available on Scribd. You guys know I have a code below for Scribd to get you 60 days free. It's available. I also listened to it. I was doing that dual thing. Really good audiobook. Like, the narrative voice narrator is fantastic. So Hitting a Straight Lick with a Crooked Stick is the other one that I finished this month. Okay, so the next book, I have a whole vlog on this, is A Court of Silver Flags. I finally read it. This 700-page monster of a book I read on a weekend. I read it in 48 hours. I really enjoyed it. But let me say this, because I think I said this in my vlog as well, but let me repeat it. This is the kind of book where a But if you get to this book, you're probably already a fan of the series, so you're probably gonna enjoy it just for the character work. This book is all vibes, no plot. There's like, the plot is the weakest thing I've ever seen. All you care about at this point is the character interactions. That's what you show up for. It's like the characters interacting with each other. But like in terms of plot, it's no. Like I don't even know why she bothered to have a plot here. Like it was just like so useless. But I really enjoyed it. Like Cassian is my favorite. As for the question of Nesta, I still don't particularly like her. She's slightly more palatable to me, but I also still think like this book almost like felt like they were trying to force me to like her, and I'm also just like, please don't force me. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't make me. That's what I wanted to say the whole time. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed this book. I can't wait for AZ's book. But if AZ ends up with Elaine, we're gonna have to fight because like I just can't do that. But A Court of Silver Flames, if you're a fan of Sarah J Maas, if you're a fan of the series, you probably will like it for the character work. So I definitely enjoyed this book, even though it was like 700 pages. Like Sarah J Maas always be writing books that are at least 200 pages too long. Like she's got time. Like she's very verbose. Like Sarah J Maas wants you to know that she knows words, and it's just like, okay. So that was really good as well. Okay, so the next book was, I finished the 4th Fence graphic novel. Loved it. This is one of my favorite graphic novel series. I have all of them over there. So yeah, definitely enjoyed this one. Highly recommend this series. Loved it. Don't really have much to say other than absolutely love that series. Okay, so the next book that I read that I absolutely loved was Census Knowledge by Mina Salami, a Black feminist approach for everyone. Definitely 5 out of 5. This book is so good. Like Mina's discussion of knowledge, liberation, decolonization, power, blackness, womanhood, sisterhood, beauty, all these different chapters. She goes into such depth and really has a very frank discussion about these things, and really you can see like how her feminism and Black feminism is the root of what she's discussing. And I like how it's really well researched, and you can see it's really well thought through, but also she has such a lyrical way of discussing these things. Her writing is so poetic, and she steeps her discussion in kind of Yoruba culture, in womanhood, in Blackness, in historical understandings and like socio-political discussions. It's everything. I would highly recommend this book, definitely if you're looking for a nonfiction, and a nonfiction that discusses a different way to look at how do we attain liberation, and how sensuous knowledge and how having like relying only on the kind of mind or the kind of quote-unquote rational thinking is so stifling, and how we have to reimagine how we fight for liberation and how we exist within these kind of confining spaces. So I definitely highly recommend that book. It was really, really good. The next one that I actually finally finished was Love is a Revolution by Renee Watson. I don't really have much to say about this book. I know I was like really excited about it. I thought it was pretty good. I just think that like I'm a little bit too old for it. I think it's a really cute, really short book. I like the messages. So I think if you have a middle grade person, if you have a teenager, if you're a really young adult, I think these messages will hit home a bit more. And I think it's really good. Like the message behind the book is solid, about self-love, about being yourself, about finding your community within yourself, and also being able to like accept love. I like the message behind this book. I like the characters. I just thought like it wasn't, I don't know. I think I'm used to a more hard-hitting book. So I thought it was really cute. I thought it was really good. I liked the conversation around, yeah, as I said, I really like this book, but I just thought, so it wasn't my favorite, but I thought it was solid for the age group that it's for. So I definitely think if I were to recommend it to someone, it would be someone maybe like between 16, a little bit younger maybe, but like 16 to like maybe 20. That's the age group that I think that book is for. So yeah, that's another book that I liked. Then there is the book that I DNF'd this month that I'm really upset about, but I had to DNF it because I just really wasn't interested at all, and it was Black Sunday by Tola Ratimi Abraham. I'm really upset about this one because I was anticipating it. I was so excited to read it, but I just could not. I was just not interested. I was forcing myself to read this. I liked the premise of the book. I thought it was such a good idea, but the execution just was not there for me. I just found it really disjointed. I've read people say this is a short story collection. Other people read it as a full-length novel. The thing is with this book is that structurally it's in a weird space between a short stories and a novel, and it's just not executed the way that I would like a book to be executed. I just thought like it also made it difficult to connect to the stories. Things were jumping around a lot, and like also the back of the book talks about the twin sisters Bibi and Ariike, but they have two other brothers who also are narrative voices in the book. So between the four of them, I think one is Thomas and Peter. I think those are their names. So all four of them get narrative chapters. So I don't understand why the back of the book makes it seem like this book is centered on these two sisters, because it's actually not. So yeah, this is one of those books that, like, yeah, I had to DNF it. I just couldn't do it. I'm trying not to like force myself to read books that I'm not interested in. Yeah, so the other book that I read this month that confused the hell out of me, and by the way, I have to say sorry because this book has nothing to do with Greek mythology, like I previously lied and said, is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. First of all, I absolutely love this book. Actually, no, I'm lying. I was about to be like, absolutely loved it. I really enjoyed it, okay? But I'm not sure I understand it fully. I have to put a disclaimer here. I Googled it after I finished reading it because I had to see if what I thought was the truth. And yes, I was on the right track in my understanding of what the book was actually about. So yes, smarty pants. But I think this is one of those books that, like, I wrote a review on Instagram, so go check that out as well. But I think this is a particular book for a particular kind of person. I would describe this book as like, so it's characterized as fantasy, right? This is what happens if a high fantasy book and a literary fiction book have a baby, and then that baby goes to Harvard to study philosophy. If that makes sense. Like, it's a lot of book. It's a lot of brain draining book. And I don't want to say draining because, like, that makes it sound bad, but it requires your mental capacities to really, like, get involved, if that makes sense. So yeah. But so also nothing to do with Greek mythology. So all in all, I think I enjoyed it. I think so. Not 100% sure, but I would solidly say yes, I enjoyed the book. It's out of my comfort zone, so I'm glad that I've actually read Piranesi. So yeah, that's another one. Another book that was also out of my comfort zone completely was Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. This is my first Kazuo Ishiguro book. And he won, winner of a Nobel Prize in Literature. I did not know that. He's a Nobel Prize winning writer. I enjoyed this book, right? So if you watch my Durban vlog, you see that, like, I really enjoyed this book. However, as I said then, the ending of this book completely let it down. So I think this book, like, it was having a conversation about what it means to be human, humanity, love, because it centers around an artificial friend. So in this world, people have artificial friends, like, you know, the development of AI, which is a conversation we're also having now, but artificial friends, and then so how those artificial friends kind of like become a part of the family and meld themselves, and what it means to, I don't want to give anything away, but what it means to be a person, and whether or not artificial friends can take the place of human beings, if that makes sense, in families and as like members of the family. The ending of this book completely let it down. First of all, it was really rushed, and then it also just like, it didn't hit the, I was expecting to cry at the end of this book because I was thinking I'm gonna get like a really, really sad ending. And I guess like people like optimistic endings, but I think this book would have had a more emotional impact if it had ended differently. And if you've read it, you know what I mean when I say ended differently. I also felt like the conversation around artificial intelligence wasn't as much as I would have liked it to be. I thought this book was really gonna dive into the intricacies of like AI and like AF. Obviously, this is not a non-fiction book, but I was expecting more than what I got. But overall, I enjoyed it. It's also not the kind of typical book that I read. So thank you to Jonathan Ball for sending me a copy. But yeah, I was expecting a little bit more, especially towards the end. So maybe like 3.5. I'd give it like a 3.5. So yeah, that book was pretty good. Then the other book that I finished finally was Home by Toni Morrison. I'm finally moving on my Toni challenge, which is like, thank God, because like I thought I was falling behind. I think I have to read one book a month now until the end of the year in order to actually get through all of her books, because I'm really far behind. Her and James Baldwin, I've like fallen behind because I've been focusing on my Jane Austen challenge. So I really liked Home. When I finished reading it, I realized I actually have read Home. I just forgot that I read it, but it was fine. I don't mind doing a reread of Toni. It was really, it's just a solid like morsel, small bites of a book. It's not her best work. I think her first novels are more of her the hard hitters. That's like Toni in her prime. I think this is a good story. I like what it's discussing about home, about going back to home, about family. But all in all, pretty good book. Nothing like spectacular, but Toni doesn't write a bad book. It's like, you know how like Beyonce's albums, like 4 is not her best album, but Beyonce's best album is better than anybody's worst. Beyonce's worst album is better than a lot of people's best albums. Same thing with Toni. Do you know what I mean? So I've finished that book, so I'm really glad about that. The other book is one that's been on my shelf for 65 years. I'm so glad I managed to finish this backlist book. And it was The Confessions of Fanny Langston by Sarah Collins. It is a Caribbean book. Cindy was recommending this book last year, and I picked it up. I got sent it by Bargain Books. I was supposed to read it last year. I haven't read it. Sorry. So I read it this month. I switched between the audiobook and the physical. I enjoyed it. Yeah, I liked it, but I can see why people were frustrated with it, because I think I feel like the discussion, the character of the madam, right, of Mrs. what's her name? I can't remember what's her name. Mrs. Benham. I felt like it was just overly sympathetic to Mrs. Benham, and I think her characterization was setting the ground for a lot of sympathy. And I find that like that's always happens with slave narratives and like colonial narratives when it comes to the white female madam, is that it always it leans towards sympathy, whereas with male men during colonization, or like white men in that time period, even now, we're expected to hate them. Like there's a really lack of sympathy there. And I mean, obviously they don't deserve it, especially in this book if you've read it, but it bothers me there's that discrepancy. By the way, this book is a queer Caribbean book, if people were unaware of that. There's like a queer element to this book. I didn't know that when I picked it up, so I just wanted to let you guys know, in case you want to read it, that there is that element as well. So I think that it was like, this is one of those books, I think it was Amin who like said, like, this is a book that like you'll like it, it's not going to change your life, and it's not going to like give you like some wow factor, but if you're looking just for a book to like tide you over, or like to engross you for a few days, for like a day or two, it's probably a good book if you're looking for a Caribbean book. But like, yeah, it wasn't my favorite book, but I'm glad I finally read it, if that makes sense. So yeah, Confessions of Fanny Langston, done. Another read Caribbean, another book off my backlist. Happy about that. Then the second to last book that I have to talk about, because the other ones I think, oh no, actually I can talk about this one first. I actually listened to an audio, Remote Control by Nnedi Okorafor. It's a short as hell book. I think it's like 4 hours on audio, short and sweet. It's a fantasy book, a sci-fi. She writes African fantasy, Afro fantasy, Nnedi Okorafor. So I thought it was a pretty solid small morsel of a book. If you've read any of Nnedi's other book, it's in a similar vein as Binti and like Who Fears Death. Her writing style stays the same. It was an interesting story. I liked it because I was listening to it in the car, so I thought that was a good thing. If you're just looking for something like nice to just listen to that's like short, Remote Control was pretty good as well. It's not like my favorite book that I've ever read, but like it was pretty good. Do you know what I mean? Then this is a book that surprised the hell out of me, and it is Set Fire to the Gods by Sarah Rosh and Kristen Simmons. So I got this book because of the cover. Hello, fantastic. So I got this book because of the cover, and oh my god, it's actually really good. So think Hunger Games / Gladiator vibes, right? So in this world, or this society, there used to be a supreme goddess, and then she had children, and then those gods kind of each are in charge of it, or each were imbued with a specific element. They all then killed their mother, and they now rule the earth with and then they have divine children, and then there's this separation between divine children and the undivine. So that's like mortals. And so what happens are these gods constantly have conflicts with each other. So what they do, instead of having like all out war, is that they've kind of devised the system where whenever two gods have a conflict, they have gladiators, they have their champions and gladiators duke it out in the pit. So, or in the arena, right? So for example, if they're fighting over mining rights in this community, or over access to the specific river, they take it to the ring, right? So in this book, Ash's mother was a gladiator, and then she gets killed like right at the beginning, and then Madoc's sister gets kidnapped, and he has to fight to try and free her. So now in all of this, there's also an undercurrent of like this like secret that's happening within the gods, and like people are trying to like, so they're trying to like undermine the gods, or trying to kill the gods, they're trying to fight back, obviously, and there's harsh inequalities in this world where like a lot of the gods and like the divines have all this money, and then a lot of the like ordinary people are like suffering, as you guys, as it be like that. So I thought this book was just really good. I thought that the world building was fantastic. I thought the character work was really good. I liked that it was like not your typical fantasy book. It's not something I've read before, and I like gladiators. I like that kind of vibe. So This is another one that I'm really glad that I actually finally finished. It was really good. I would definitely give this like a solid 4 stars. I can't wait to read book 2. If I had to say any cons, what would be my cons? I thought like the ending was a little bit rushed, but all in all, like if I had to just like say all in all, I personally really enjoyed this one. So that one definitely was really good. I'm glad I finally read it. Then the last book is one that I had to wait for last because I am blown away by this book. I am so surprised at how much I love this book. Seriously, How to Fail at Flirting by Denise Williams. This is like a solid 4.5, if not 5-star romance book. You guys know I've been struggling so much with romance books. This book threw me for a loop. I fell in love. I love the characters. I love Naya. I love Jake. I love their banter. I like their dynamic. I like how this book. So it. By the way, before I carry on. Hectic trigger warning for domestic violence. You just need to pay attention to that. I know Taryn said it when she was reading it, but you probably don't all follow Taryn, but like this book has a bit of a trigger warning for domestic violence, so just be aware of that. But anyway, I really enjoyed this book. I thought even the discussion of domestic violence, I think it was such a well done discussion of like psychological emotional abuse and what that does to a person and how it makes it difficult for you to trust people afterwards. I also really related to Naya and her whole being like a quiet person and like being really studious and being really goal orientated, and like you wake up and you realize like a lot of life is passing you by because you're busy, like too busy focusing on like, you know, like your career and stuff. So I really, guys, this book is really good. It's really well written. I think if you're looking for a romance book, I would definitely recommend this. Like it's the right kind of steamy. The banter is fantastic. I thought the characters were really good. And I like that it was a bit deeper than your normal romance book. So yes, How to Fail at Flirting was really good. So glad I finally read this. It was very good. Right, so that's the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. These are the like 17 books plus 1 audiobook plus 2 ebooks that I read this month. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you find it instructive. Well, I'm so glad I managed to finish some of these, like they've been on my shelf for ages. So anyway, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Instagram and @PrettyXBookish. Like, comment, follow, share, all that fun stuff. You guys know the drill. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. I'm gonna go carry on reading now because that's what I do. Okay, bye guys.